The alarm systems across Earth's orbital station began flashing at exactly 0300 hours. Commander Day Kang rushed from his quarters, still pulling on his uniform jacket. In 20 years of service, he had never seen every sensor light up at once. "Talk to me," he said, entering the command center. "Sir, we have an unidentified vessel approaching from outside the solar system," the junior officer reported, her voice shaking. "It's not using any propulsion we recognize. It just appeared." Day moved to the main screen. The ship looked like it was made of crystal and light. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Nothing Earth had ever built looked like that. "Are weapons charged?" he asked. "Yes, sir. But, Commander, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. It's a message. They want to talk." Day took a deep breath. This was it. First contact, the moment humanity had wondered about for centuries. He straightened his uniform and said, "Send for Hana Lee. We need our best diplomat here now." 30 minutes later, Hana Lee arrived in the docking bay. She was Earth's chief ambassador, a woman who had negotiated peace between nations when war seemed certain. But she had never negotiated with aliens before. No human had. The airlock opened with a hiss. The being that floated through was unlike anything Hana had imagined. It looked like a person made of living glass, with light moving through its body like blood through veins. It had no mouth, but somehow it spoke. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Kelrin of the Galactic Council. I come seeking help." Day and Hana exchanged glances. The aliens sounded desperate. "We welcome you, Ambassador Kelrin," Hana said, keeping her voice calm and professional. "Please, tell us what brings you to our world." The crystalline being seemed to dim slightly, as if showing sadness. "Our civilization is dying. Not just mine, but dozens of species across the galaxy. We are being destroyed by an enemy we cannot defeat." Kelrin projected images into the air. Hana and Day watched in horror as they saw planets burning, cities turned to ash, billions of beings running, screaming, dying. Ship after ship exploded in space, unable to fight back against an enemy that looked like dark metal spiders the size of buildings. "They are called the Voran Swarm," Kelrin explained. "They are machines, built long ago by a species that is now extinct. They have only one purpose: consume everything. They take apart planets for resources, destroy all life, and move to the next system. They have been doing this for 3,000 years. "How many worlds have they taken?" Day asked quietly. 417, Kelrin said. "We have lost 417 worlds, trillions of lives gone." Hana felt sick. "And your military? The Galactic Council must have armies, fleets?" "We do," Kelrin said, and the sadness in its voice was clear. "But we are not warriors. Our species evolved on peaceful worlds. We have ships, yes, but we use them to evacuate civilians. We fight when we must, but mostly we run. We have been running for 3 centuries. "Why come to us?" Day asked. "We just developed faster than light travel 5 years ago. We have barely left our own solar system." Kelrin's light pulsed brighter. "Because we have been watching you. Our probes detected Earth decades ago. We studied your broadcasts, your history, your nature, and we learned something that frightened us at first, but now gives us hope." "What did you learn?" Hana asked. "That humans are violent," Kelrin said simply. "Your history is filled with war. You have fought each other for thousands of years. You created weapons that could destroy your entire planet. Your stories, your movies, your games, they are all about conflict and battle. We almost avoided your world because of this. We thought you were dangerous." Day felt his face grow hot with shame. It was true. Humanity's history was soaked in blood. But Kelrin continued. "Then we watched more closely. We saw that you stopped, you unified, you turned your weapons into tools. You went 30 years without a major war. And we realized something. You did not become peaceful because you did not know how to fight. You became peaceful because you knew too well how to fight, and you chose not to. That is wisdom. The ambassador moved closer. The swarm is coming to this region of space. In 5 years, maybe 10, they will reach your solar system. We cannot stop them, but perhaps you can. We come to ask for your help. Send us advisors, military tacticians, anyone who understands warfare. We will pay any price. We offer technology, resources, territory, anything you want. Hana looked at the images still floating in the air. Burning cities, dead children, species going extinct. She thought about Earth, about blue oceans and green forests, about the billions of people who had no idea this threat existed. We need to bring this to our government, she said. To our assembly. This decision is too big for us alone. I understand, Kelrin said, but please hurry. Every day we delay, more worlds die. We asked for help because we heard rumors that humans understand war. We need that understanding now. Even a few ships, a few advisors, it would mean everything to us. Day stepped forward. Ambassador, I cannot speak for Earth's government, but I can tell you this. If humans decide to help, we will not send a few advisors. That is not how we do things. What do you mean? Kelrin asked. Hana smiled, and there was something fierce in that smile. He means that humans have a saying. If something is worth doing, it is worth doing completely. We do not do anything halfway. We only ask for what you can spare, Kelrin said. Any help is more than we have now. You will have your answer soon, Hana promised. Return to your ship. Rest. We will contact you within 24 hours. After the ambassador left, Day turned to Hana. Do you think they will agree? The assembly? Hana looked at the images of burning worlds still displayed on the screen. I think they have to, because Kelrin is right. If the swarm keeps coming, they will reach Earth eventually. Better to fight them out there than wait for them to arrive at our doorstep. And if we fight, Day said quietly, we should fight to win. Exactly, Hana said. She pulled out her communication device and began typing a message to the United Earth Assembly. Let's show the galaxy what humans can do when we stop fighting each other and start fighting together. Above them, the crystalline ship waited in orbit, its alien crew hoping for salvation from a species they barely understood. They had asked for help, expecting perhaps a handful of ships and some tactical advice. They had no idea what was coming. Earth was about to respond, and when Earth responded to a call for help, it did not send tokens or symbols. It sent everything it had. The Voran swarm had conquered the galaxy for 3,000 years, facing no real resistance. That was about to change. The United Earth Assembly Chamber was built to hold 300 representatives from every nation on the planet. Today, every seat was filled. People stood in the aisles. The gallery above was packed with observers. Everyone wanted to be present for this moment. President Sung Nam stood at the central podium, his face serious. He was an old man who had lived through the last war Earth had fought, 40 years ago. He remembered what war cost. He also remembered what it meant to defend what mattered. Members of the Assembly, he began, we face a decision that will define humanity's future. You have all seen the evidence. You have all heard Ambassador Kelrin's plea. Now we must decide. Do we help, or do we stay isolated? The first to speak was Representative G. Park, a woman from the Asian Coalition. She stood, her voice clear and strong. We must help, not just because it is right, though it is, but because if we do not, we will face the swarm alone in a few years. Better to fight them now, with allies, than later when we stand alone. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. But Representative Marcus Cole from the American Union stood up, shaking his head. We unified Earth 30 years ago specifically to end warfare. We put aside our weapons. We focused on building, not destroying. Now we are asked to become warriors again? To send our children to die in space for aliens we just met? They are not asking us to die, G. Park shot back. They are asking us to help them survive. Is that not what we would want if we were in their position? The debate continued for hours. Some argued Earth should remain neutral. Others said humanity had a moral duty to help. Still others worried about the cost, the casualties, the risk of making humanity a target. Finally, Admiral Tae Won was called to speak. He was the commander of the Solar Defense Fleet, the military force Earth had built not for conquest, but for protection. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes that had seen combat in the old days, before unity. "Members of the Assembly," Tae Won said, "I have reviewed the data provided by the Galactic Council. I have studied the Voron Swarm's tactics and capabilities, and I have a strategic assessment to present." He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Red dots marked swarm positions. Blue dots showed Council territories. A tiny green dot marked Earth. "The swarm moves in a pattern," Tae Won explained. "They consume one region, then move to the next. Right now, they are in the galactic northeast. Earth is in the galactic southwest. Based on their current trajectory, they will reach our region in 7 to 12 years. He let that sink in. But here is the critical point. The Council has been fighting defensively for 300 years. They evacuate, retreat, and abandon territory. This is why the Swarm keeps winning. They have faced no real opposition, no counterattack, no strategic resistance. Intelligence Officer Yuri Choi stood up to add her analysis. She was young but brilliant, one of Earth's top military minds. "The Swarm is effective because it adapts. It learns from each battle and becomes stronger, but it has only learned how to fight defensive, retreating forces. It has never faced an aggressive, offensive campaign." "What are you suggesting?" asked Representative Cole. Yuri smiled. "I am suggesting that the Swarm has been fighting the wrong kind of enemy. The Council species evolved on peaceful worlds. They think of war as a last resort, something to be avoided. Humans are different." "How so?" another representative asked. Tae Won answered, "Because we evolved fighting each other. For thousands of years, we waged war on our own planet. We developed strategy, tactics, weapons technology, all refined through constant conflict. We are very, very good at warfare. We just chose to stop using those skills on each other." He changed the holographic display to show Earth's military assets. The numbers made several representatives gasp. The Solar Defense Fleet currently consists of 12 battle fleets, each containing 340 ships. We have carrier groups with 10,000 fighter craft. We have orbital defense platforms, kinetic bombardment satellites, and weapons systems the galaxy has never seen. We built all of this in just 30 years, thinking we might face threats from space someday. That day is today, Yuri added. President Sung Nam raised his hand for silence. "Admiral, if we commit to this fight, what are you recommending?" Tae Won's answer was immediate and firm. "Full mobilization, all 12 fleets, every carrier group, every weapons platform we can transport, 40,000 ships, and 3 million personnel." The chamber erupted in shocked voices. "That is our entire military!" Representative Cole shouted. "You want to send everything?" "Yes," Tae Won said calmly, "because the Council asked us for help expecting a few advisors. If we send a token force, we will fail. The Swarm will adapt and overcome. But if we send our full strength, if we hit them with everything we have, we can end this threat before it reaches Earth." G. Park stood again. "I support this plan. We should fight the Swarm now, on our terms in their territory. Not wait for them to arrive at Earth and fight them in our home system." The debate raged for 6 more hours. Representatives argued about cost, about risk, about morality. Some wanted to send nothing, others wanted to send only a small force. But slowly, steadily, the tide shifted toward full commitment. Finally, President Sung Nam called for a vote. All in favor of full military mobilization to assist the Galactic Council against the Voran swarm? Hands rose across the chamber. One by one, representatives made their choice. When the count finished, the result was clear. 237 in favor, 63 against. Earth was going to war. President Sung Nam's voice was heavy with emotion as he spoke. Then it is decided. Admiral Tae Wan, you have authorization to mobilize the Terran Armada. Representative Park, you will coordinate with the Council. And may whatever gods exist have mercy on us all. The assembly adjourned. Within an hour, mobilization orders went out across the solar system. Fleet commanders were pulled from leave. Ships that were docked for maintenance were pushed into urgent readiness. Factories that built civilian goods switched to producing ammunition and supplies. Hana Lee was given the job of informing Ambassador Kelrin. She met the crystalline being in the same docking bay where they had first talked. "Ambassador," Hana said, "we have an answer for you." Kelrin's light pulsed anxiously. "What has your government decided?" "Earth will help," Hana said. Relief flooded through Kelrin's form, making its light brighten. "Thank you." "Thank you so much. How many advisors will you send? A dozen? 20? However many you can spare, we are grateful." Hana shook her head, smiling. "You misunderstand. We are not sending advisors." Kelrin dimmed in confusion. "Then, a ship? A squadron?" "No," Hana said. "We are sending the Terran Armada, 40,000 warships, 3 million soldiers, every weapon platform we have, every fighter craft, every piece of military equipment Earth possesses." Kelrin went completely dark for a moment, as if the information had overwhelmed its systems. When its light returned, it was flickering with what might have been shock. "But that is your entire military force," Kelrin whispered. "Your whole planet will be defenseless." Dae Kang, who was standing nearby, laughed. "Ambassador, Earth will not be defenseless. Earth has 5 billion people who know how to fight if needed, but they won't need to, because we're taking the fight to the enemy." "I don't understand," Kelrin said. "We asked for help. We did not ask you to risk everything." Hana's expression grew serious. "Ambassador, let me explain something about humans. When we commit to something, we commit completely. We do not do things halfway. You asked us to help you fight the swarm. We are not going to send a few ships and hope for the best. We are going to end this threat permanently." "But what if you fail?" Kelrin asked. "What if the swarm destroys your fleet?" Tae Wan's voice came over the communication channel. He was already on his flagship preparing for departure. "Then we will build another fleet and attack again, and again, and again, until either the swarm is destroyed or humanity is extinct. That is how we fight. We do not retreat. We do not surrender. We win or we die trying." Kelrin was silent for a long time. Finally, it spoke, its voice filled with something that might have been awe or fear, or both. "What have we done?" it whispered. "We came seeking help from warriors, but I think we have awakened something far more dangerous than we imagined." Hana smiled grimly. "You asked Earth for help, Ambassador. Now you're going to see what happens when humans go to war. Return to your people. Tell them the Terran Armada is coming. Tell them to hold their positions and protect their civilians." "And the swarm?" Kelrin asked. Dae Kang's grin was fierce and wild. "Tell the swarm that humanity has arrived, and we're not here to evacuate." The Talvera system was dying. Fleet Commander Velthos watched from the bridge of his flagship as another transport ship launched, filled with refugees. Civilians who were leaving behind homes their families had occupied for generations. In 3 days, the Voran swarm would arrive. In 4 days, Talvera would be ash and metal scraps. Velthos was a Kaleen, a species that looked like tall, slender beings with skin that changed color with their emotions. Right now, his skin was deep blue, the color of sadness and resignation. He had overseen 17 evacuations. He was tired of running. "How many transports left?" he asked his aide. 147, Commander. We can evacuate maybe 70% of the population before the swarm arrives. 70%. That meant 30% would die. 3 million people. Velthos felt sick. "Keep loading," he ordered. "Every life we save matters." His communications officer suddenly stood up, his skin flashing yellow with surprise. "Commander, we have incoming ships, multiple quantum tunnel signatures." Velthos felt his heart sink. "Already? The swarm is early. All ships, prepare for—" "No, sir," the officer interrupted. "These are not swarm signatures. These are— I don't know what these are. The energy readings are completely different." On the view screen, space began to tear apart. Not the dark-eating blackness of swarm portals, but bright blue-white rifts that looked like lightning frozen in space. And through those rifts came ships. Velthos had seen many species vessels. Kaleen ships were elegant and curved. Porthan ships were spherical and smooth. Therine ships looked like living creatures. But these ships were different. They were angular, aggressive, covered in weapons and armor. They looked like they were built for one purpose, war. And there were so many of them. "Count them," Velthos whispered. The communications officer's skin went pale white, the color of shock. Commander, I count 3,000 ships in the first wave. No, wait. 6,000, 9,000. Sir, they keep coming." For 20 minutes, ships poured through the quantum rifts. When the portals finally closed, Velthos was staring at the largest military fleet he had ever seen. His sensors reported over 40,000 vessels, ranging from small fighter craft to massive battleships that were 3 kilometers long. "Who are they?" he breathed. His answer came as a transmission broadcast on all frequencies. The face that appeared on the screen was alien but clearly organic. Flat-faced with 2 forward-facing eyes, a trait common in predator species. The being wore a dark uniform with insignia Velthos did not recognize. "Attention, Talvera System. This is Admiral Tae Wan of the United Earth Space Forces, commanding the Terran Armada. We are here to assist the Galactic Council against the Voran swarm. All civilian vessels, continue your evacuation procedures. All Council military vessels, please stand by for tactical coordination." Velthos found his voice. "Earth, you are the humans. Ambassador Kelrin said you were sending help, but we expected a few dozen ships at most." The human's expression shifted into what might have been a smile. "Ambassador Kelrin learned that humans do not send a few ships when we commit to a fight. We sent everything." "But this is your entire military force, yes? Your homeworld is undefended." "Our homeworld is defended by 5 billion people who will fight to their last breath if needed," Tae Wan replied. "But they won't need to, because we're ending this threat here and now. Commander Velthos, please transmit all tactical data on the swarm's expected arrival time and force composition." Velthos quickly complied, sending over everything his scouts had reported. The swarm fleet heading for Talvera numbered approximately 50,000 vessels. He watched the human admiral's face, expecting fear or concern. Instead, Tae Wan just nodded. "Good. They're bringing a real force. That means we can test our weapons properly." "Test your weapons?" Velthos could not believe what he was hearing. "Admiral, the swarm has 50,000 ships. You are outnumbered." "Actually, they're outnumbered," Tae Wan corrected. "We have 40,000 ships, yes, but each of our vessels carries weapons your species hasn't developed. Plus, we have 3,000 fighter craft with pilots who have trained their entire lives for combat. The swarm is about to face something it has never encountered, a military force designed specifically for warfare. The transmission ended, and Velthos watched as the human fleet began to move. They were not fleeing. They were not forming defensive positions around the planet. They were arranging themselves in an offensive formation, facing the direction from which the swarm would arrive. On the UES Incheon, Captain Ho Jin stood on his bridge, reviewing the battle plan. His battleship was part of the Vanguard, the ships that would make first contact with the swarm. He had 200 crew members under his command, and he was responsible for their lives. But he was not afraid. He was ready. "All stations report," he ordered. "Weapons hot and ready, Captain. Shields at maximum. Engines running at peak efficiency. Fighter Bay reports all craft ready for launch." Ho Jin nodded. "Excellent. Communicate with the fleet. Weapons free on my command." In Fighter Bay 7, Wing Commander Nari Seo was running through her pre-flight checklist. She was 28 years old and had been flying since she was 16. She had logged more than 5,000 hours in simulators and real combat drills. She was one of Earth's best pilots, and she knew it. "Phoenix Squadron, sound off," she said into her comm. "Phoenix 2, ready. Phoenix 3, ready." One by one, her 24 pilots confirmed readiness. They were flying the newest fighters Earth had built, small, fast, heavily armed craft that could maneuver in ways that would kill most organic species with the G-forces involved. "Good," Nari said. "Remember your training. Stay in formation. Watch your wing partners. And when we engage, make every shot count. These machines killed trillions of civilians. Let's show them what happens when they face real soldiers." Her pilots cheered, their voices fierce and eager. Nari smiled inside her helmet. This was what they had trained for. This was their moment. On the Council flagship, Fleet Coordinator Yoon Kim had been assigned as a liaison between the human fleet and the Council forces. She was explaining Earth's tactical doctrine to Velthos, who was listening with growing disbelief. "You see," Yoon said, pointing to the display, "most Council species fight defensively. You try to minimize casualties, preserve ships, evacuate civilians. These are good instincts for a peaceful species. But humans learned warfare through thousands of years of fighting each other. We developed different instincts." "What instincts?" Velthos asked. "Aggressive offense," Yoon replied. "We believe the best defense is to destroy the enemy before they can hurt us. We take risks. We accept casualties if it means accomplishing the mission. And we never, ever retreat unless it is part of a larger tactical plan." "But that is insane," Velthos said, his skin flickering orange with distress. "You will lose ships. People will die." "Yes," Yoon agreed calmly. "Some of us will die. That is the cost of war. But we accept that cost because the alternative, letting the swarm continue killing trillions, is unacceptable. Humans see war as a problem to be solved, and we are willing to pay the price to solve it." "You speak of death so casually," Velthos said quietly. Yoon's expression grew serious. "No, Commander, we do not take death casually. Every life lost will be mourned. Every name will be remembered. But we also understand that sometimes violence is necessary to protect the innocent. Your species has been running for 300 years, hoping the swarm would stop. Humanity is here to make them stop." Before Velthos could respond, alarms blared across every ship in the system. The swarm had arrived. 50,000 machine vessels emerged from dark space, their hulls black and angular, covered in weapons and harvesting equipment. They had come to consume Talvera, just as they had consumed 416 other worlds. They detected the human fleet immediately. For a brief moment, there was silence as the swarm's collective intelligence analyzed this new element. They had fought Council forces thousands of times. These ships were different, unknown. The swarm adapted quickly. They began their standard attack pattern: overwhelming numbers, surround and destroy. On the Incheon, Captain Ho Jin watched the swarm fleet approach. He opened a fleet-wide channel and spoke calmly. "All ships, this is Ho Jin. The enemy is here. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. For Earth, for humanity. For every species the swarm has destroyed, forward weapons engage on my mark." He paused, watching the swarm close to optimal firing range. Then he smiled. Mark. 40,000 human warships opened fire at once. The space between the two fleets lit up like a star being born. Kinetic accelerators fired tungsten rods at 70% of light speed. Missiles streaked forward, leaving trails of fire. Energy weapons lanced out, so bright they hurt to look at. The swarm's shields, designed to defend against Council energy weapons, encountered something they were not built for: solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The kinetic rounds punched through shields like they did not exist and tore through hulls like paper. In the first 30 seconds of combat, the swarm lost 3,000 ships. On the Council flagship, Velthos watched in stunned silence as the humans tore into the swarm with a fury he had never witnessed. His skin was flashing white, then yellow, then colors he had no names for. "What are they?" he whispered. Yoon Kim smiled, and there was pride in that smile. "They are humans, Commander, and they are done running." The Voron swarm had existed for 3,000 years. In that time, it had consumed 417 worlds, destroyed 233 species, and killed more than 2 trillion organic beings. It had learned from every battle, adapted to every weapon, overcome every defense. It was the perfect war machine, unstoppable and relentless. It had never lost a battle, not once in 3 millennia. That record was about to end. Captain Ho Jin watched his tactical display as the swarm tried to recover from the first devastating volley. 3,000 swarm vessels destroyed in 30 seconds, a loss that would have broken any Council fleet. But the swarm was not organic. It felt no fear, no hesitation. It simply adapted. The swarm ships spread out, creating more distance between vessels so a single kinetic round could not take out multiple targets. They rotated their hulls, presenting thicker armor toward the human fleet. They began launching smaller drone units, thousands of them, to absorb fire and protect the larger ships. "Smart," Ho Jin muttered. "They learn fast." Weapons Officer Wu Han switched to cluster munitions. "Let's see how they adapt to that." Wu Han grinned as he input the new commands. He was a big man with steady hands and a love for explosives. "Cluster munitions armed, Captain. Firing solution locked." "Fire." The Incheon launched a spread of missiles that looked normal at first. But as they approached the swarm's drone screen, each missile split apart into 50 smaller warheads. What had been 20 missiles became 1,000 explosive projectiles, each seeking a different target. The drones exploded by the hundreds, but enough warheads got through to strike the main swarm vessels. Fire bloomed in the vacuum of space as ships were torn apart. "Captain, the swarm is adapting again," the tactical officer reported. "They're deploying electromagnetic fields to deflect our kinetic rounds." "Then we use energy weapons," Ho Jin replied calmly. "Charge the plasma lances, all batteries. Prepare to fire on my command." Across the human fleet, similar adaptations were happening. The swarm changed tactics, and the humans changed with them. It became a deadly dance, each side probing for weaknesses, exploiting any advantage. High above the main battle, Wing Commander Nari Seo led her fighter squadron into the chaos. Her craft was small and fast, dancing between swarm ships that were the size of buildings. Her targeting system locked onto a swarm destroyer's engine cluster. "Phoenix 2, Phoenix 5, follow my lead. We're taking out that destroyer's engines." Her wingmen acknowledged and formed up on her position. The three fighters dove toward the massive swarm ship, dodging automated defense fire. Nari's fingers were steady on the controls as she lined up her shot. "Missiles away," she said calmly. 3 missiles streaked toward the destroyer, impacting in a precise cluster. The explosion tore through the engine section, leaving the ship crippled and drifting. "Confirmed kill," Phoenix 2 reported. "Moving to next target." But Nari noticed something. "Wait! Phoenix Squadron, break formation! The swarm is launching interceptors!" Small swarm fighters poured out of the larger ships, moving to engage the human pilots. They were fast and maneuverable, designed to counter fighter craft. "Finally," Nari said with a fierce grin. "A real dogfight! Phoenix Squadron, show them what human pilots can do!" What followed was a display of flying that defied physics. Human pilots pulled maneuvers that generated 8, 9, sometimes 10 Gs of force, acceleration that would kill most alien species instantly. But humans had evolved as endurance hunters on a high-gravity world. Their bodies could survive stresses that would break other beings. Nari rolled her fighter, dodging swarm fire by centimeters, and came around behind an enemy craft. Her cannons fired, shredding the machine into debris. She immediately spun to engage another target, her hands moving with practiced precision. Around her, her squadron was doing the same. Phoenix Squadron had trained together for 5 years. They knew each other's moves, covered each other's gaps, fought as a single unified organism. The swarm fighters were fast and deadly, but they were individuals. They could not match the coordination of a well-trained human unit. In 4 minutes of intense combat, Phoenix Squadron destroyed 27 swarm fighters and lost none of their own craft. Back on the Incheon, Captain Ho Jin was coordinating with the rest of the vanguard. The battle had been raging for 2 hours now, and both sides had taken losses. The swarm was down to 37,000 ships. The human fleet had lost 8 destroyers and 1 light cruiser, with several other vessels damaged. "Admiral Tae Wan is requesting a tactical update," the communications officer reported. Ho Jin opened the channel. The Admiral's face appeared on the screen, looking calm despite the chaos of battle around him. "Captain, status report." "Sir, the swarm is proving more adaptable than we expected. They're learning from each engagement and changing tactics quickly. We're still winning, but it's costing us." "Expected," Tae-Wan replied. "Combat AI specialist Rin Bei predicted this. The swarm adapts to whatever we throw at them. But we have something they don't. Creativity. Rin has been running counter-adaptation algorithms for months, transmitting new tactical protocols now." Data flooded into the Incheon's computers. Ho Jin scanned it quickly and smiled. "Sir, this is ambitious. That's why we're humans, Captain. Execute when ready." The channel closed, and Ho Jin turned to his crew. "All right, people, we're trying something new. Wuhan, I need you to prepare the Kasaba howitzer." Wuhan's eyes widened. "Sir, we've never used that weapon in actual combat. It's still experimental." "And we're in an experimental situation," Ho Jin replied. "Prepare to fire." The Kasaba howitzer was a weapon developed from an old Earth concept. It used a nuclear explosion to generate and focus a plasma jet, essentially a directed nuclear blast. It was powerful, dangerous, and completely insane. It was also exactly the kind of weapon humans would build. "Target the densest concentration of swarm ships," Ho Jin ordered. "Fire when ready." The Incheon launched a missile that looked ordinary. The swarm's point defense systems targeted it, but the missile was heavily armored and got through the defensive fire. When it reached the center of the swarm formation, it detonated. A nuclear explosion bloomed in space, but this was not a normal blast. The energy was channeled, focused into a jet of superheated plasma that lanced through a dozen swarm ships in a straight line. Each ship the plasma touched simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. Across the human fleet, other ships were deploying weapons the swarm had never encountered. antimatter missiles that annihilated anything they touched, electromagnetic pulse bombs that fried the swarm's electronic systems, gravity wells that pulled ships out of formation and into each other. Earth had spent thousands of years developing weapons to use against itself. Now all that terrible creativity was being unleashed on an enemy that had never faced a truly militarized species. The swarm tried to adapt. It launched more drones. It changed formation. It attempted to retreat and regroup, but the humans did not give it time. They pressed forward relentlessly, accepting casualties, but never slowing their advance. On the Council flagship, Velthos was watching the battle with a mixture of awe and horror. The humans were winning, yes, but the cost was terrible. He had watched 3 human destroyers explode, their crews lost. He had seen fighters destroyed, pilots killed. And yet the humans did not stop. They did not retreat. They just kept attacking. "How can they do this?" he asked Yoon Kim. "How can they keep fighting when people are dying?" Yoon's face was sad but determined. "Because we know that if we stop fighting, more people will die. Every swarm ship we destroy here is one that cannot attack a civilian world later. Yes, we are losing people, but we are saving billions more. But the cost is acceptable," Yoon finished. "That is the difference between your species and mine, Commander. You see casualties as a reason to stop fighting. We see casualties as a reason to fight harder, to make sure those deaths meant something." The battle raged on. 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. The swarm was down to 20,000 ships. The human fleet had lost 200 vessels, less than 0.5% of its total strength. The math was simple. At this rate, the swarm would be destroyed long before the human fleet was significantly damaged. The swarm's collective intelligence ran the calculations and reached a conclusion it had never faced before. It could not win this battle. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Voran swarm attempted to retreat. But Admiral Tae-wan had predicted this too. Human ships had been slowly encircling the swarm formation for hours, creating a net. When the swarm tried to flee, they found their escape routes blocked. "All ships," Tae-wan broadcast. "They're trying to run. Don't let a single one escape. End this." The human fleet closed in from all sides. The swarm fought desperately, destroying another 6 human vessels. But it was futile. One by one, the machine ships were torn apart by kinetic rounds, plasma fire, missiles, and weapons the galaxy had never seen. 6 hours and 37 minutes after the battle began, the last swarm vessel was destroyed. Silence fell across the comm channels. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then, from somewhere in the fleet, a single voice started singing Earth's victory anthem. Other voices joined in. Soon, 40,000 human ships were singing together, their voices echoing across space. On the Council flagship, Velthos stared at the debris field that had been a swarm fleet. 50,000 enemy ships destroyed. Human losses: 127 personnel killed, 214 ships damaged, 8 destroyers lost. It was impossible. It should have been impossible. "What are you?" Velthos whispered, looking at Un Kim. Un smiled, but there was no joy in it. "We are humans, Commander. We are the species that learned to make war an art form, then chose to use that art to defend others instead of destroying ourselves, and now the galaxy knows what happens when humanity goes to war." Admiral Tae-wan's face appeared on all screens. "All ships, excellent work. Damage control teams begin recovery operations, medical teams tend to the wounded, and someone get me a tactical map of the next swarm position." Velthos could not believe his ears. "Next position? Admiral, you just fought for 6 hours. Your people need rest." Tae-wan's smile was tired but fierce. "Commander, we didn't come here to fight one battle. We came to end the swarm. So tell me, where do we go next?" 8 months had passed since the Battle of Talvera. 8 months of constant warfare as the Terran Armada pushed deeper into swarm territory, reclaiming system after system. The Galactic Council had been fighting the Voran swarm for 300 years and had lost 417 worlds. Humanity had been fighting for 8 months and had liberated 63 worlds. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Tai Wan reviewed the tactical map. The red markers showing swarm positions had shrunk dramatically. Only one remained, the Voran stronghold, the ancient factory world where the swarm had been built millennia ago. It was the heart of the machine intelligence, protected by the largest concentration of swarm forces remaining in the galaxy. Battle Coordinator Jay Moon stood beside the Admiral, analyzing the intelligence reports. He was a thin man with tired eyes who had not slept more than 4 hours a night since the campaign began. "Sir, our scouts report 200,000 swarm vessels defending the stronghold. That's 5 times what we faced at Talvera." "And how many ships do we have?" Tai Wan asked. 37,000 combat-ready vessels. We've taken losses and many ships are undergoing repairs." Tai Wan nodded slowly. "So we're outnumbered 5-1. What does strategic AI Mi Sung recommend?" Jay pulled up the AI's analysis. Mi Sung was not a person, but a sophisticated tactical program, one that had been learning and adapting throughout the campaign. She recommends a 3-phase assault. Phase 1, long-range bombardment to thin their numbers. Phase 2, fighter strike to disable their command nodes. Phase 3, full fleet assault to break their formation. "Casualties estimated?" Jay hesitated. "Hi, sir. My Sung predicts we could lose 30% of our fleet. That's over 11,000 ships." The bridge crew went silent. 11,000 ships. Hundreds of thousands of lives. Tai Wan stood still for a long moment, staring at the tactical display. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "Send a message to all fleet commanders. Conference in 2 hours. And get me a channel to Earth. The President needs to know what we're facing." 2 hours later, every captain and wing commander in the fleet was gathered in virtual conference. Their faces filled dozens of screens on the flagship's bridge. Tai Wan stood before them, looking at each face in turn. "You all know what we face," he began. "The Voran stronghold, 200,000 enemy ships, the heart of the swarm. If we win this battle, we end the threat that has killed trillions. If we fail, the swarm survives and continues to consume the galaxy." He paused, letting that sink in. "I have spoken with President Sung Nam. I asked for permission to withdraw, to wait for reinforcements, to take more time to prepare. Do you know what he said?" The commanders waited. "He said, 'I did not send you to wait. I sent you to finish the job. So that is what we will do. We attack in 72 hours. Make your peace, check your weapons, and prepare your crews. This will be the hardest battle humanity has ever fought, but it will also be the last battle of this war." Captain Ho Jin, whose Incheon had been in the vanguard of every major battle, spoke up. "Sir, we're with you, all the way to the end." Around him, other commanders echoed the sentiment. Wing Commander Narration, whose Phoenix squadron had destroyed over 500 swarm fighters, smiled grimly. "We came here to end the swarm. Let's finish this." 72 hours later, the Terran Armada emerged from quantum tunnels at the edge of the Voran stronghold system. The stronghold itself was visible even from this distance, a massive sphere the size of a moon, covered in factories and weapons platforms. Around it, like a defensive shell, floated 200,000 swarm vessels. "All ships to battle stations," Tai Wan ordered. "Begin Phase 1. The human fleet spread out into a wide arc, maximizing their firing angles. Then, as one, they opened fire. Kinetic accelerators, plasma lances, missiles. Everything the Terran Armada had learned to use in 8 months of warfare was unleashed at once. The space between the fleets lit up like a second sun. Swarm ships began exploding by the hundreds, then thousands. But the swarm was firing back, and their return fire was devastating. Human shields flared and failed under the barrage. Ships took damage, some catastrophically. The destroyer UES Soul exploded when a swarm lance pierced its reactor. 300 lives lost in an instant. The battleship UES Tokyo lost half its hull to a kinetic strike, but kept fighting, its captain refusing to withdraw. The carrier UES Beijing launched its last fighter squadron even as fire spread through its lower decks. The battle was brutal in a way none of the previous engagements had been. The swarm was defending its last stronghold with everything it had, and humanity was paying the price. On the Incheon, Captain Ho Jin watched his tactical display as ship after ship took damage. Weapons Officer Wu Han, status? Forward batteries at 60% capacity. Port side weapons offline. But we can still fight, sir. Good. Keep firing. High above the main battle, Wing Commander Nari Seo led the fighter assault on the swarm's command nodes. These were specialized ships that coordinated the swarm's defense. Destroy them, and the swarm's efficiency would drop significantly. Phoenix Squadron, Delta Squadron, Omega Squadron, form up on me. We're going deep. 300 fighters dove into the heart of the swarm formation, dodging defensive fire that turned space into a deadly web of energy and metal. Nari's hands moved with practiced precision, her fighter dancing between shots that would have vaporized her if she was even slightly slower. "Target locked," she said calmly. "Missiles away." Her missiles struck a command node dead center. The ship exploded, and immediately she noticed swarm vessels nearby beginning to move erratically, their coordination disrupted. "It's working! All squadrons hit your targets!" But the swarm was not defenseless. Defensive platforms tracked the fighters, and many human pilots did not make it back. Nari watched Phoenix 7 explode, its pilot, a young woman named Lee who had just turned 23, gone in an instant. "Keep moving," Nari shouted into her comm. "Don't let their deaths be for nothing." The fighters completed their mission. 17 of the 19 command nodes were destroyed. The cost, 142 pilots killed. On the flagship, Admiral Tae Wan watched the tactical situation develop. Phase 1 and 2 were complete. The swarm was down to 140,000 ships, their coordination disrupted. The human fleet had 29,000 combat-effective vessels remaining. "All ships," Tae Wan broadcast. "Phase 3, full assault. Break their lines and take that stronghold." The Terran Armada surged forward as one unified force. Every remaining ship, every functional weapon, every ounce of human determination focused on a single goal: end this. The fighting was savage. Ships collided in space, crews fighting hand-to-hand on boarding actions. Captains rammed their damaged vessels into swarm ships when they ran out of ammunition. Pilots flew fighters held together by emergency seals and sheer willpower. Captain Quan Lim commanded a heavy cruiser that had lost most of its weapons. When his ship was boarded by swarm drones, he led his Marines in powered armor through the corridors, fighting room by room. The close combat was brutal, but humans had one advantage. They had evolved from predators and could fight with a ferocity that machines could not match. "Keep pushing!" Quan shouted, his armor's plasma blade cutting through a drone. "Make them pay for every meter!" His Marines fought like demons, their training and their fury combining to push back the swarm forces. They reclaimed their ship section by section, killing every drone that had boarded. The battle raged for 11 hours. 11 hours of constant, brutal combat. Ships died on both sides. Lives were lost. But slowly, inexorably, the human fleet pushed forward. Finally, a gap opened in the swarm's defensive shell. Admiral Tae Wan saw it immediately. "All assault ships, converge on coordinates 774. We're going through." 20 assault cruisers, including the Incheon, punched through the gap and headed straight for the stronghold. Behind them, the rest of the fleet held the line, keeping the swarm ships occupied. "This is it," Captain Ho-Jin said to his crew. "We finish this now." The assault ships opened fire on the stronghold itself, targeting the massive structure's power generators and factory sections. The stronghold's defenses activated, but the human ships were too close, moving too fast. Major Young Pak led the boarding team onto the stronghold's surface. He was a combat veteran who had fought in every major battle of the campaign. His mission was simple: find the swarm's central intelligence and destroy it. His team of Marines moved through the stronghold's corridors, fighting drones and automated defenses. They took casualties, good people who had fought beside Young for 8 months. But they kept pushing forward. Finally, they reached the core, a massive chamber filled with processing equipment and servers. The swarm's central intelligence resided here, the machine mind that had commanded 3,000 years of destruction. "Major Pak," a voice said. It came from speakers around the room, synthesized but clear. "I am the Voran intelligence. I offer negotiation. I can provide technology beyond your comprehension. I can serve humanity. I can—" "No," Young said simply. He raised his weapon and fired at the central processor. The swarm's intelligence tried to bargain, to plead, to offer anything that might save it. But Young and his team methodically destroyed every server, every backup system, every piece of hardware that housed the ancient AI. When they finished, the entire stronghold went dark. Throughout the system, every swarm ship stopped moving. Without the central intelligence to coordinate them, they were just empty shells. "Admiral Tae-Wan," Young reported. "Mission accomplished. The swarm is dead." Across the battlefield, human crews began to cheer. They had done it. 8 months of fighting, thousands of lives lost, but they had done it. The Voran swarm, the terror that had consumed 417 worlds, was destroyed. The Terran Armada had paid a terrible price. Out of 40,000 ships that had left Earth, only 24,000 remained combat-ready. Over 200,000 personnel had died in the campaign, but they had saved the galaxy. 2 weeks later, the Galactic Council convened a ceremony to honor humanity's achievement. Representatives from dozens of species gathered at the Council's central station. President Sung Nam attended personally, brought from Earth on a fast ship. Ambassador Kelrin, the crystalline being who had first asked Earth for help, approached the president with reverence. "President Sung Nam, on behalf of all Council species, we thank you. You saved us when we could not save ourselves. We offer you full Council membership, leadership positions, territorial rights, anything you wish." Sung Nam looked at the assembled aliens. He saw gratitude in their faces, but also something else, relief that the threat was gone and they had not had to fight themselves. "We accept your thanks," Sung Nam said carefully, "and we will join your council as equal members. But I want to make something very clear." The chamber went silent. "Humanity did not come here to become your protectors. We did not fight this war so you could continue to avoid fighting. The swarm is gone, yes, but there will be other threats, and next time you will fight beside us, or we will let you face them alone." There were murmurs of shock among the council members. "We will leave 3,000 of our ships in council space," Sung Nam continued, "not to defend you, but to train you, to teach you how to fight, to help you build militaries that can protect your own people. Because the galaxy cannot survive if only one species is willing to fight." Ambassador Hana Lee, standing beside the president, added, "Humanity learned a hard lesson in our history. Peace is not the absence of conflict. Peace is having the strength to defend what matters and the wisdom to use that strength only when necessary. We will teach you that lesson." Fleet Coordinator Yoon Kim stepped forward with a proposal. "We are establishing the Galactic Defense Academy. Any species that wants to learn human military tactics is welcome. We will teach you strategy, weapons design, combat training, everything you need to defend yourselves." In the following months, the academy filled with students from across the galaxy. Species that had never thought of themselves as warriors learned what it meant to fight. Human instructors like Wing Commander Narration found themselves teaching alien pilots how to dogfight. Marine veterans like Major Young Pak trained alien soldiers in combat tactics. The galaxy was changing. The council species, so long passive and defensive, were learning to be strong. One day, Narration stood in the Academy's flight simulator bay, watching a Kaleen pilot, Velthos's nephew, complete a difficult combat maneuver. The young alien's skin flashed green with pride. "Good," Nari said. "You're getting better. Keep practicing." The Kaleen pilot looked at her with something like awe. "Instructor Seo, can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Are you not afraid? My people have been running from danger for our entire history. But you humans, you run toward it. How?" Nari smiled. "Because running only delays the problem. Fighting solves it. And because someone has to stand up to the darkness, it might as well be us." She looked out at the academy, at the hundreds of alien students learning to defend themselves and their people. "Besides, we're not alone anymore. You're learning. Soon, when the next threat comes, we'll face it together." The young pilot's skin turned bright yellow, the color of hope. Far away on Earth, President Sung Nam stood in his office looking at the night sky. Somewhere out there, 3,000 human ships remained on station, teaching the galaxy to fight. The rest of the Terran Armada had come home, its surviving crews welcomed as heroes. There would be memorials for the fallen, names carved in stone, ceremonies to honor the dead, over 200,000 lives lost in 8 months. But they had saved trillions more. And they had changed the galaxy forever. Humanity had gone to the stars and found a galaxy that needed saving. They had responded with their full fleet, their full strength, their full commitment. And they had shown the cosmos what humans could do when they stopped fighting each other and started fighting for others. The Voron swarm was gone, but humanity's message remained, echoing across the stars. We are here. We stand ready. And we will never run from a fight that matters.